Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pensado's Place. He's Dave. I'm Herb. And in a second, you'll meet our guest, the co-founder of the seminal indie rock band TV on the Radio. But first, we got a couple things for you. The Trap Money Benny workshop at 1500 Sound Academy was an absolute packed success. Thanks for attending. More to come. We got a big sweepstakes coming down the pike. The Pensado sweepstakes will include Warm Audio, Groove 3, Eventide, SonarWorks, Isotope, and maybe a few more. We're working on that now. We'll get you some details. Sign up for our newsletter at pensadosplace.tv, and if you would, like and subscribe and click right there, notify. Hey, Talish, we got our arms around you. You know, yes, we do. You are family. And Dave, what is in this week's Into the Lair?
I'm going to show you how I use SonarWorks and some of my assistants and some of my friends. Really cool piece of software. Check it out. Hey guys, thanks for dropping by. I don't know if you remember, but a long time ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, I had you saw paint cans underneath my NS10s. That room was a horrible sounding room, and boy, did I pay the price for it. It just took me so much time to do a mix, and when I had finished it, I was not confident. I'd send it to Dylan, I'd send it to my friends, and it just took forever to finish a mix. When I heard about this company, SonarWorks, it intrigued me, so I've done a little research on it. I've met the people, I've had lunch and dinner with them, and they're good people. And this system is truly remarkable. The most expensive speakers in the world that aren't accurate aren't worth anything. And then how many of us want to treat our rooms if we're going to move in a year or two? We don't know. So there's a lot of reasons why you should check this out. And I truly believe it. A little bit you're going to hear from one of my assistants who really likes it. A couple of things. When you get a flat tuning in your room, a lot of times you don't realize how good it is because your ears have become accustomed and trained to the incorrect calibration that you have for that room. It's a lot like looking in the mirror when you've gotten a new haircut and it looks a little odd to you. Then a week later, your boyfriend or your girlfriend says, "Oh, man, you look cute," and now you like the haircut. It takes a minute to grow into it. And calibration and room tuning is the same thing. All the famous room tuners tell me that. So once you get it flat, give yourself a little bit of time to get it acclimated to flat. And so they've provided you with a wet, dry knob where you can mix a little bit of the old with the new, and then as you get more and more and more accustomed to the new curve that you're using, you can dial it all the way, which is what I recommend. You don't want to hear more of a particular frequency and then you put less of it in your mix, and that frequency might be the frequency that makes the difference between getting a song placed or getting a record out into the public, whatnot. So there's a very strong need for this, and it solves the problems that those of us that don't have a perfect environment to monitor in truly need. They have what's called Reference 4 system-wide and Reference 4 plugins. Now, both of these do very, very, very similar things, but they have specific applications that they do well. Now, with system-wide, you can apply that to the output of your computer, and it works well in that application or your DAW. Now, with a plugin, it's just what it says. It's the plugin. Don't be afraid. There's a lot under the hood in this thing, but it's very straightforward, and if you follow the instructions that come along with it, it's pretty straight ahead. It'll tell you, put your mic here, put your mic here, put your mic here, and then you can hear the measurements that it's taking. It's kind of cool and very instructive. I learned a little bit about sound by watching that particular video without actually having a microphone. Now, the plugin doesn't have any latency because that can be a problem or an issue. Now, you can get a little bit of quality going to linear phase mode. Those of you that are familiar with linear phase, what you're doing is you're correcting different phase problems that could come up, but it's at the expense of about 50 milliseconds of latency time, which in a mixed situation, that's not that bad. So what I would recommend is that you you do the mix and work on your mix in a mode that you're very comfortable with, and you can move quickly. And then as you get near the end of the mix, switch to linear phase so that you can get that quality to come out the speakers for you. Another component of the software that I truly, truly like is the ability to adjust a curve once you've got it locked in. And how do you use that? Well, let's say you move some furniture around, or you have a lot of people in the room and you're not really comfortable with what you're hearing is accurate. Well, you can tweak it, and I think that has a lot of uses, particularly if you play your stuff other places and for some reason the way you hear music, you're not putting enough of something in the mix. Let's say your mixes are kind of 1K shy. Well, then you can take the software and lower your 1K, and then that'll make you put more into the mix to come out of your speakers. They've thought they put a lot of thought into this thing. It's really, really good. I can't say that enough. I want to introduce you to my assistant, Nico Hamui. He's been with me for quite a while, and I don't know what I'd do without him. Nico recently got the bundle for SonarWorks, and I'd like to get his thoughts and share them with you. Nico, come on over, buddy.
Hey, what's up, Dave?
Haven't seen you since 3 seconds ago.
I know, right? Good to see you, Dave.
Man, over the course of a few minutes, we've been talking about how SonarWorks worked for you. Can you share a little bit of that with the audience, like your room and how you used it?
Yeah, I actually love it. It was pretty easy to set up, I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
Took me about 30 minutes. Like you said, the calibration does 20 or 30 points,
Mm-hmm.
and then, pretty much really accurately just tune my room up. And like you mentioned the mix knob as well, I actually had to use that.
Oh, really?
It was a little difficult and hard to really accept that correction in my room, but I got around to it, and I can't live without it
What
now.
treatment do you have in your room?
I've got some wood framing that I actually built myself. I'm pretty
Cole
proud
Nystrom
of.
Specials?
Yeah, they're Cole Nystrom Specials,
Okay, got it,
703s.
got it.
And, I did it myself. It's maybe spent $50, $60 on it. And it got me to where I thought it was good, but now I know it's good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
You do a lot of work for me, and I've noticed that your mixes have been getting tighter and tighter and tighter,
Thanks,
and we
man.
discussed how that was a function of SonarWorks. What are some other things that you feel have become enhanced or easier since you got the plug-in?
Well, I'm not doing car checks anymore, for one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, rarely ever, actually. And when I bring my mix to show you, I used to, clench up a little bit when you hit play. And
Well, I used to beat you severely, so...
and yeah, I'd be really shy about showing you my stuff. And now I'm just like, I know exactly what's going to come out of the
you're
speakers.
doing good stuff. And as far as headphones go, what benefits do you see?
Well, back in the day, we'd have to learn our headphones and be like, okay, these headphones have that kind of
Takes
characteristics. It takes a long time. And now I could just pick up any headphones, really. I've got an array of headphones I could choose from. My old guys, my new headphones, and I just tune them up, and I'm pretty much rocking.
Is that the mic you use for the...
Yeah, actually, this is the mic that came with the bundle.
Oh, okay.
And what you do is you set it up right into your interface, and then it's, like you said, it's got 20 to 30 different positions. You actually move it around, and it really tunes up your room pretty accurately. Now, I don't have as nice speakers as you do, but it definitely made me feel like I was hearing exactly what I was kind of missing from my speakers, comparing the translation from your room to my room.
In terms of things like the quality of your mixes, the depth, the width, all those types of things, that enhanced?
Definitely. Man, it's like using the comparison the first time. I remember the first time I got glasses and contacts, I felt like I could see the world anew, right?
Same
and
here.
that's kind of the feeling that I got with this. It was like, dude, all this heavy lifting I've been doing, like, I don't have to do it anymore. It's incredible. So,
Yeah. The one thing that bothers me, though, is when you walked in one day and said, hey, Dave, I'm about ready to knock you off the throne, so just be prepared.
man, you still got to get ready, man. I'm getting better and better every day.
And your speakers, would you describe them as inexpensive or expensive?
I would say they're definitely, I have some more inexpensive pair that I started off with, and I'm, of course, trying to get better and better, nicer speakers, but I'm pretty much in the prosumer range.
Okay. It's really cool in this world when you have your expectations met by something like software. And this particular software by SonarWorks, reference 4, really delivers. I stand behind it. I like it. I've got a lot of friends that are using it. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of famous friends that are using it. It does nothing but help your environment and help you make better mixes. Run over to the website, sonarworks.com, and surprise, there's a free trial. See you soon.
NME, a very influential British magazine, named our guest one of the 50 most influential and forward-thinking people in music. As we've gotten to know him, I think we're going to call him a musical anarchist. Please welcome to the desk, Dave Sitek. How are you, man?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
So right away, I just need to know, because as one of the co-founders of TV on the Radio, this is one of the all-time seminal indie, rock bands. This was how you learned Pro Tools?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I had done the Yeah Yeahs album, Fever to Tell, and I was asked to do the Liars next record. And at that time, all the indie bands were kind of farming the analog vintage sound, and the Liars were like, what is the thing that everyone hates the most? And I'm like, oh, digital, like no question about it. So I went on eBay and I bought a Pro Tools TDM system. I won the bid. I think I beat Neil Sean from Journey at the bidding war. I couldn't tell, but it seemed like it was him. So I got this Pro Tools system, and it came in like a flight case, and all of a sudden showed up in my apartment. This giant thing. It was I had two 888s and the tower and the whole thing, and so it shows up at my apartment in Brooklyn. I was like, I got to learn how to use it, because I've been I had 2-inch tape. I had a 388, the Tascam 388. I was like always making records on. Like, I love that thing. And so I had been using, tape my whole life, and I was really used to it. But Pro Tools was just an abstract to me. So I called Chris Code in Baltimore. I said, hey, I just got this Pro Tools system. And he's like, you're using Pro Tools? I was like, no, I'm opening it, and I don't know what it is. I need you to come to New York.
This?
Just 2001 or 2002, end of 2002. It was Pro Tools 7.4 at that time. So. Chris Cody came from Baltimore up to New York, and he showed me how to use it. And then the Young Liars EP was me figuring out how to use Pro Tools in my bedroom. So that whole thing was recorded in my room. And then we just passed it out to our friends. We had no intention on really being a band, and then not a real band, Tunde was an animation artist, and he did Celebrity Deathmatch. He was one of the chief animators on that show. And, I was producing records and still selling paintings on the street. So
was there a vision for the band?
No.
It was just to get together,
like, hey, let's try to make like some really weird stuff. And my view of the music I had been making on my own was done predominantly with like an MPC 2000, one of those really lousy SP808 Groovebox samplers, which I loved. But I had just wound up making all this like experimental cut-up music with it. And so the Young Liars EP was me and Tunde, basically him volunteering to make songs with me while I figured out how to use this software that I would wind up using for the Liars record. So
pushing the envelope seems to be your natural zip code, that where both you can express yourself and also find inspiration. Is that fair to say? I mean, the range of artists that you produce, remix, work on is really quite amazing through the whole course of your career, even to last year.
I have been more than lucky. Like I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities that I've had, considering I lack the ability to really steer on. I don't have like a long-term view for myself. I think it's more like what's really inspiring to me right now. Like what really speaks to me. I would say I'm fortunate in the sense that I'm perpetually a teenager about music. I will always be affected on an emotional level, and that's more important than the intellectual level at every turn. So I think if I'm feeling a little bit rebellious, something like the Yeah Yeahs comes into your life, and you're like, whoa, like that, and you can kind of react to what your emotional state is. And I think the music started as a prayer, and the original intention, I think, of that was so that you could stave off loneliness or, confront fear or celebrate life or death or what have you. And I think that music has, if you were going to say, I'm going to make a prayer, you certainly wouldn't be like, it's going to be a really obscure prayer. Nobody's going to get this and take an avant-garde approach to it. But
when I first, when I was 6 years old, I didn't know what I knew, and I heard a Jimmy Reed song that changed my life, changed my world.
Yeah.
I had never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
What was it about me that liked that, and why didn't all my friends like it? You know, those things just come out of the blue, so they must have some kind of primal or a priori type of effect on us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I think
you had that same experience.
I think that's what music does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately creative expressions are put out, whether it's movies, music, whatever the case may be, and the hope is to touch somebody.
I think that with, I think that everyone's trying to make a prayer. They're trying to say, hey, you're not alone. Or, I don't think, I don't think for a split second that Mick Jagger isn't able to get satisfaction. And I don't even think that that's his intention. That song's not about Mick Jagger. It's about me, And, it's like there's certain times in your life when all of a sudden you relate to a song that you hadn't prior, like Bob Dylan, It Ain't Me, Babe. I probably heard it 800 times before I got my heart broken, and the song meant nothing to me. And then all of a sudden,
It meant everything.
It meant everything. It was like the world to me. And I can say that about some Velvet Underground songs. I can say that, like Pharoah Sanders' Karma, I think is probably the album that transformed me as a listener. I think
that's more jazzy.
Yeah, that's like super out there stuff. But I had so much angst that I had prior to that thought that the only avenue for was like Bad Brains or Slayer or something. And I wasn't able to see like the beauty in the violence or what have you. And that record really just transformed me. I was like, this is like all of the feelings that I have that are chaotic and unpredictable, all showing me that like there's this like higher order, that there's this like universal love. And I think that when I put on The Creator Has a Master Plan, it allows me to look at the world that I'm in, that may be inundated with all of this crazy stuff, but I know that on an intrinsic level as a human being, it's a shared experience. And I think that would be the extreme out there left side of it, but I think that the same could be said for almost anything in Otis Redding's catalog.
Do you take that same sort of broad lens approach when you think about the creative influences on you, and then take that back now into the studio? Do you take that approach when it comes to analog versus digital? Are you looking for things that are destructive, that blows up the place? Are you experimenting in such a way? Or are you just like, how does your creative philosophy then translate to the use of technology and how you make your music?
Well, I would say that for the kind of guesswork that has dictated my entire career, I think that it's almost never about equipment. I mean, it's like I have had tons of equipment and I've used tons of equipment, but to be honest with you, I pretty much stick to the same basic stuff. And it's really, I try to find out who I'm working with and what their intentions are, and then I'll hang out with them for some time. And then, whatever the path is makes itself known in a way. I think, sometimes you'll be,
I got you figured out.
Oh, yeah?
Your Skrillex meets Spike Stent meets Sylvia Massey.
I think that there's probably contributions of all of those people, certainly, in this.
Yeah, because you got the rock thing, because Skrillex was a heavy metal guy.
Yeah.
And then Spike, you sound like Spike, and you love Spike.
Spike's my Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that would make sense.
And then Sylvia's fearless. She'll blow a piano up. She'll do whatever she needs to do.
It's wild. Yeah.
Have you ever made a record with her? You should.
I should, absolutely.
Yeah,
Colin put that down in the books. Yeah, no, it's really, I think that the sense of trying to figure out, trying to make sense of this world is already like it's a full-time, concentration, but I think that music allows us to transcend, we're able to leap over a bunch of hurdles. And I think that, in terms of if your position in music is to be successful, I would say don't even watch the rest of the interview, because I'm not really good at, like, I'm not really prone to that. I think that I'm more like...
But that makes the interview actually more important, because I think people who are our audience look for traditional paths when there is not a path.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different paths.
I think you can get discouraged if your barometer for success is other people knowing what you do. I think that it would be a mistake to think that your contribution isn't tremendous, even though there's no evidence. I think that I'm in pursuit of, when you have a dream where you're in school and you don't have your clothes on and like that nervous feeling that you have, like to me, that's like when I know I'm onto something important in a mix, when I'm like, oh my God, we don't know what's going on. To me, that is my goal, is to be in a place where there's nothing you could point at as an anchor. And I think that especially in the music industry, especially in Los Angeles, I guess it's magnified, but it's probably true across the board, is that the goal is to be with all the cool people in the infinity pool, right? Like overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I tend to think of myself as the guy that people are pointing at being like, what's that idiot doing out there? Doesn't he know there's an infinity pool? I want to explore. I want to go out into the depths, and I think that for people who are making music and trying to find their path, I think that all the answers are inside you. I think that no feeling in my life with any song I've ever done will ever equal that first time you play back, maybe even before it's mixed, when you play it back and you're like, I can't believe I was involved in this. Like, that's the greatest measure of success to me. And that is available to you even in headphones, it's like preferably near field monitors, but that feeling where you like turn to the person that you're working with or turn to the person that believed in you. Like, it's really funny. I think that if you look at the music business as all leading up towards like a Grammy, it's like a really silly proposition to me. Because I think that if you're at a Grammy celebration and you win a Grammy and you're on stage, the most honest thing that you could do would be to thank like the food service industry or your brother who like covers you for rent. Like those are the people who really like make it all happen. I think that the music business is the least progressive in terms of support of its own. I think that like your show gives people skills that they might not be able to afford, or they get.
I was about to disagree with you until this last sentence, so keep going.
Right.
Maybe I do agree with you now.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I think that there's nothing wrong with like writing a hit song. It's not even that I'm saying it from that place. It's more like just don't think that evidence from the outside world is going to be the most important.
But let me show you why you're somewhat hypocritical.
Yeah, of course.
On the Carters, you took a Phoenix Express loop.
Yeah.
A loop.
Yeah.
A loop.
Yeah.
You used a loop.
Yeah.
And you turned that into Love Happy.
And also an Eddie and Ernie song, which is the predominant part of that loop.
Right.
There. So it's like actually three loops.
And I'm just teasing you, by the way. But it does seem a little odd that you would build a song on a loop on a Jay-Z Beyoncé record.
Right.
Talking about...
Yeah, go ahead. No, bring it on.
Just explain how that all came about.
Well, that track I actually had made before I, even knew that they were interested in making a record. Like I was in Amsterdam on tour with TV on the radio, and I
love that. I love that track, man.
I'm really excited about that track, and so I was in Amsterdam on tour. I bought some space cakes. I left my bag at a hotel. I never saw it again. And so I had to replace my music collection. And back then, you still had CDs. And so I went to a music store and I was, got the basics, the ones I knew I needed to survive the rest of the tour. And then I got some random stuff that I just had no idea what it was. And Eddie and Ernie was the record that I got on that trip. And as soon as I heard that You Make My Life a Sunny Day, I was like, that's a Jay-Z track. Like, it just in my mind, I was like, that's the one. And this was in 2006 or 2004 or something. Yeah.
Wow.
But I had looped it on my MPC, but I'd never made it into a track. And then, every time I turn my MPC on, I'm just like, it's there. And I was like, it's going to find the right thing.
On the final product, and by the way, shout out to our friend Colin Leonard who mastered it.
Yeah.
On the final product, what's the difference between the loop as you sampled it and what we hear on the record?
There's other supplemental drums and stuff like that, but I mean the main difference is the the participation of Jay and and Beyonce. It's like, you know, I mean, as soon as I heard that song, my thought wasn't even to finish listening to the song. It was like, I gotta break that up into 16 pads, you know, like that was my first.
How'd you get it to him?
Into Eddie and Ernie?
No, how'd you get it to Beyonce and Jay-Z? How'd you get the track to him?
It's a really funny story, and I don't want to blow up the person's spot, but Jay had been talking to a friend of mine about this new project, and he's like, you know, I want something that's like, you know, not from the usual, you know, corners. And this person I had sent him, I have about 5 or 6 people I just send just random. I'm like, check this out, I'm working on this.
That's
and
a
he
great
had
idea.
that track. And so he was like, oh, you should check out Sitek from TV on the radio. And he's like, oh, well, does he make beats? And so then he just plugged his phone in and went like that. And allegedly, as the story goes, Jay immediately said, send that to me. And then the next day, I think he had done his verses on it. And then Beyonce had heard it shortly thereafter. And yeah, and then I got a call from like Teresa and like the whole camp. And they're like, we want this track. You know? Yeah. So
She's one of my
So
favorites.
one of the things that is a hallmark of what you do is this incredible range. Santigold, Preservation Jazz Band, you know, the Carters that you just talked about, remixes on Beck and so forth. Does that represent just your taste, your interest level? People sort of know to go to you for these various things, or provenance, just the way the world has worked?
I mean, I really, I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, when I look at the people I've been able to work with, it was not planned that way. And I think that just my wide range of interest level certainly has some guiding hand in that.
Absolutely.
But I think also, I think that after the first, you know, you can press play on TV on the radio and you really don't know where we're coming from.
For sure.
And so I think that I might be the production side of that, where it's like, I wonder what would happen if, I think that I my spirit animal would probably be like a vice grips or something. It's just like the wrong tool for the you know,
Now,
whatever job.
So when somebody hires you then to do a remix, for instance, is there a philosophy you have on where it's going to go, or you just follow your muse, or because they're probably not hiring you to do a remix for the clubs or
No.
remix for radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I'm more of a reimagining guy than a remix guy. I think it would be more like, I wonder if this song was at half tempo, or, and again, it's that pursuit of that like Naked in School feeling where you're like, am I going to get away with this? I think that there's like a little bit of that involved in everything that I do. I'm like, can I get away with this?
I don't know if it happened to you, but I think somehow my creative journey is not quite there, because have you had the Naked in School dream?
With him.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, January 23rd. Yeah, everybody has that.
Oh, so you guys were running
Well, you
around
were in
naked
the
in school
room.
together?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
why wasn't
You had
naked?
clothes on.
Why wasn't
Yeah.
naked?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so
we were
okay.
up on stage, like.
And where did it go?
I don't think
where
I've
did
ever
you guys
seen
go
myself
once you
naked.
started?
No, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, you said
Let me clarify this. I don't think I've ever seen myself naked in my own dream.
okay. All
I
right.
can't speak for others, but
I don't know that I
But
see
just think the
myself,
liberties you could have when
Yeah.
you do. You can just be, you know.
You know that
anyways.
butterflies feeling where you're like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in too
Just
deep.
free
You know,
and-
like
yeah.
when you're talking to the cops and your palms are all clammy. Like that feeling is in
It's
me.
kind of like Wile E. Coyote, where you stepped off the cliff,
Yeah.
but before you
Right
fall.
before you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's-
something
Exactly.
happened to me today. I'm going down the 14 freeway
Mm-hmm.
at about 85, 86, 87, and I come around a curve. There's a policeman
Mm-hmm.
pointing a radar gun, a laser gun at me.
Yeah.
I didn't get pulled over. What a great day, huh?
I'm telling you, you got that. It's that force field you have around your car. that
I
you're
got
not
to
telling
claim the
everyone
hands
about.
though. I got all the nervous. Everything came
Yeah.
except I kept looking in the rearview mirror, looking and
He was looking for me. I was behind you. Yeah.
Were you naked?
Yeah, I was naked.
Anyways, let's
oh,
get
that's
off
what
that.
it was.
Yeah, this is gonna be the most psychedelic of all the
Of all the things. And it could get
episodes.
worse.
Yeah, of course. Right?
Of all the different hats, of all the different hats that you have, is there something you consider yourself more of than not? Are you a musician first? Are you a producer first? Composer, guitar player? Is there one thing?
I'm a listener. I mean, like, really, I think that, like, I'm more utilitarian than I think people might believe. I'm more like, what is needed right now? I think that the whole reason I started recording other bands wasn't because I wanted to, learn how to record, it was because I was impatient and I loved their band and I didn't want to wait for them to make a record. So a lot of the, my punk bands and the bands I was friends with that I run at recording on 4-track, that was a product of me being impatient. Like I just wanted to hear their record, and it was unrealistic to tell my friends to play at every hour of the day, And so to me, it was, I think that kind of, whatever is needed. If I'm in a studio with an incredible singer, it's like, should we get the best piano player in the world? Should I just peck at this thing until we make a cool sound? Like, it's really about the conversation with the artist or artists that I'm working with that kind of determines what I'm going to be. And in some instances,
when you're writing, what do you write on? Is it different things? Or is it guitar? Is it...
all kinds of things. I think that I tend to be, in my younger years, I was concerned with wild audible experiments more than I was about a song. And then I found that if it doesn't work this way or this way, it's probably a style and not a song. And so I try to make myself do this or this and get the story out. If there's vocals involved. If it's an instrumental thing like Preservation Hall, it's a little bit more like, let me stand in the middle of this and let me react to it. I went down to New Orleans and wound up accidentally in parades and at brass band bars, and just like the explosive nature.
Accidentally?
Yeah. You can accidentally, if you're in New Orleans on any day of the week, you could accidentally wind up in a second line. Just by walking down the street, you're like, oh, here comes the parade. I'll stick with the parade until I get to the street I need to leave on. So that explosive nature of that music, and that was something that was like, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind. I was like, my job is to preserve this feeling of excitement and danger at every corner. Like, like you could just have a tuba blow your head off. Like I wanted that excitement, to be in the recording. So that was kind of my guide for that.
When you produce, you talked about you have sort of your usual tool sets that you utilize, and then that allows you to paint from your creative place, correct? Without having to get lost in the technology and stuff. Do you mix your own records? Who's your engineer?
Well, Lisa, who's right over there.
Oh, wait. And, Lisa's here?
Yes, she
can
is.
Can we bring her up?
Absolutely.
Lisa, come on up and join us.
How long has she been with you?
2 years about.
Oh,
yeah.
Do you mind being right here? Oh. So where are you from?
I'm from Russia.
Oh, where in Russia?
Siberia.
Yeah. And did you start your musical journey in Russia before you got here, or how did it go?
No, actually, I moved here in 2012, and that's when I decided I went to music a long time ago, but I didn't have the opportunity. And then when I moved, I went to college for music, and I started interning at different studios, and I ended up at Dave's.
A couple of things. We've always tried to make sure that we pull back the cover and show that there are tons of talented women that don't get attention.
Oh,
and
hands
should.
down.
And I know you're probably saying, I don't know what I'm doing up here, what this show is.
I paid for that ad that he just did for me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
She has really made me a huge fan of you guys. Like
you were aware of the show?
I was like, I'm watching this.
Did you watch it in Russia or before you got here?
No, I got here actually, and then I went home to visit when I started learning engineering. And my Russian friend, who's an engineer, he's like, "You should check out Pensado's place." And I was like, "Okay."
What's his name?
His name is Ivan. Vanya.
Shout out to Ivan.
Shout out.
But he told me, and I started watching, and I didn't understand anything in the beginning. I was just like, frequencies and all this stuff I don't know anything about. But then slowly I started figuring it out, and it made more sense, and I rewatched all the episodes, and I was like, okay.
That makes sense.
And in terms of motivation and encouragement, it's been so amazing to have interviews of people. I mean, you ask such great questions too. It's like everything that I want to know. I want to know what the person felt in the studio and how the record came together and stuff.
Yeah,
it's inspiring.
We've always felt that you have to capture the whole experience, not just the technical experience.
Yeah.
When your money's not good, or when you get inspiration, or when you just get to a city. Well, listen, congratulations.
Thank you.
You can come here anytime you'd like.
Thanks.
It's wide open. Bring your friends. You're with an incredible guy.
Yeah.
We're new friends, but we are going to be close friends. So
I love this.
And congratulations for hiring her.
Oh yeah, no, I lucked out, and then she is going to perform me, and everyone will be working with her, and she'll be on this show, and then
And
We'll see.
And we'll be happy to have you.
Where do you think you want to be in 5 years?
Making music. I don't know the right answer to that, you know? I just want to keep doing stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.
That is the
We
right
appreciate
answer.
it.
Thank
and
you
you're
so
with the
much.
right team.
Yeah.
Cool. In your TV on the radio world as a band, does touring come into play?
yes.
And
yes.
do you like that? Do you do it often? How does it fit into the...
We tour less now than we ever have. I think the first couple of records we were pretty much out for 13 months per record, and that was extreme, especially because, you know, we weren't intending on being a band. So then it's like all of a sudden I've got this recording studio that I built in New York. I've got a Malcolm Tough 980 console, tons of outboard gear, and I'm gone for 13 months. And it was just like that. I think that was the divided self takes its toll. So now it's like we do 3 weeks at a time with breaks, and we haven't been on tour for a while. We put out records a lot less frequently now. We're working on a new album, which, you know, we have jinxed ourselves and said we'll be finished several times, so I have no idea at this point. Tunde has a daughter now, and so a lot of, you know, a lot
Those
of
records
respect
going
to
out
other
independently, or you signed
No,
to...
the first ones were on Touch and Go, the first two, and then we split with Touch and Go, and we did Beggars for UK and worldwide, and we had Interscope for the US, and then it was Interscope for the US, and then it was Harvest for Seeds, and then now we have no label.
Got it.
What's an area that you feel would just bring you lots of joy and fulfillment? A musical area or a type of band that you feel like would just, a bucket list kind of band almost, like if you could do this band, you'd just be so happy and fulfilled and could go out to pasture with your little tidy whities on?
Tina Turner, Annie Lennox, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson. I think not necessarily in that order.
Lying.
No, really.
Herb, you believe him?
I look at his T-shirt.
I know.
Oh, you know, I'm a
Absolutely.
Tina fanatic.
Her son was a friend of ours. He just passed away.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
He worked at Air LA with Craig Burbage. Really?
Yeah.
Those
Or Sturgill Simpson. I really like it. I didn't even really know a lot about him until
Well, you're vocal oriented from our discussions, and you describe people who are distinctive vocal signature type.
I'm always like a believable voice. You know, I think that like Kelis is one, but I've worked with her, but I would certainly work with her. I love her. I love her. Yeah. And Alice Smith, I think, is probably the greatest human voice I've ever heard. And I've worked with her, but we haven't put anything out, but we like have worked on stuff together.
I missed it.
Alice Smith.
Now, who's that?
She's a singer. She's had a couple records out. She did a CeeLo cover that's just out of this world, but her voice is like nothing I've ever heard. I mean, it's out of this world.
I get into this debate my whole career when you try to explain to people at least this perspective and see if they accept it, that it's not always the best singer, it's the most believable singer.
Yeah.
That's the difference between being here and being here. It's, you know,
I don't think I ever told anyone, as I'm the biggest Neil Young fan ever, I don't think I've ever said, he's the best singer. Like, I don't think he's ever said it, but it's so believable. And you know, I think Nina Simone is certainly, I mean...
Prince.
Yeah.
You just believe. Rod Stewart. You,
I think
you
it's,
believed. You know, it wasn't range and charisma and stuff.
Been really moved by like this, like the simpler. I think that's what my bucket list is like. You know, I think the ideal situation for me is to have like an elam in a room and then a rat trap switch, and then it's like, Dave, we want you to produce it, and I'll be like, okay, go. And then when they finish performing, I go, stop. And then it's out on Spotify 10 minutes later. That
would be a cool thing.
And you can only really do that with, you know, people who bring it and bring the experience.
I think, too, there's plenty of upsides.
Right.
But one of the downsides of learning about vocals visually, whether it's American Idol, YouTube, or whatever the case may be, is that it's very hard not to put production values behind the singing visually. And so people think everything's got to have fireworks and everything's got to have, you know, and because when you're making something to be consumed with your eyes, it's not the same thing as something that's consumed by your heart.
Yeah.
It's something that goes through your ears and it tricks your imagination and it touches an emotional
Yeah.
place. When it's an explosion and a this and a costume change and a bow and and on a beat and the band, so on and so forth, you teach people that that's how singing is impactful, and then they come up with stuff that's just all artifice, but they also don't know better, and that's the part that I think is sad. There's no camp to go be deprogrammed.
I have seen true star power and that thing that you always hear about, that thing that you can't explain, and it comes out of some people just effortlessly. I think Tina certainly. There was a place called Merriweather Post Pavilion in the town that I grew up, and the punk rock thing to do was to like jump the fence and get into a concert for free. It didn't even really matter if you liked the band or not. You were just trying to prove that you could give the finger to the man. And I had leapt over the fence to see Tina Turner, and I had known who she was tangentially. I wasn't like a giant fan or anything, and I was just so stoked. Summer night, get to leap the fence, go in there, and it was the first time I had ever had that feeling where I was like, that's what a superstar is. Like up until that point, I didn't really know. Like I guess I'd only seen it like there wasn't. MTV had just started. It wasn't like in your face like it is now, but that was the first time I ever saw somebody, and I was like, oh, you were put on this earth to be on that stage, and it just electrified. And I think that there's like performers who are able to do that on record and don't need the gymnastics.
I'll tell you one further, and it seems like most of the time those performers have a really strong live background. Like Ed Sheeran was begging for money in the subway of London. Yeah. And you kind of learn what people want to make a living that way, And then you look at Whitney Church. I mean, the church has been the biggest.
The church produces the best musicians in the world.
Yeah.
Hands down. There is no question in my mind, and especially in the South, especially in New Orleans.
There's something about just performing in front of people that can hone your skill.
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix played for the Isley Brothers.
I know.
Can you imagine?
Ronald Isley.
Can you imagine being like in the Isley Brothers and this guy shows up and you're just like
the guitar. It's
you're just like, oh my God.
He was living with him too, and he heard Ronald play.
Oh my God.
All right, before we go back down memory road and so forth, let's tee up Batter's Box and see what you do. You'll be great. You'll be fine. I think so.
You don't have any weapons or knives or anything on you, do you?
No.
But if you do, use it.
I think I'm going to win.
Then make it visual.
Yeah.
We don't just have to make it. All right, tee it up.
Delays.
Flights.
Backgrounds.
Perfect. Okay, time out. That is the best all-time answer in Batter's Box history. Delays. He said flight.
You be in TV on the radio
Storms.
on one tour.
I love that. Okay.
It was good, but you subtract a point, I remember.
I don't think so. I think it gets extra. Go ahead.
Backgrounds.
Let them be the foregrounds.
808s.
Church.
Van Halen or Steve Vai?
Van Halen, all the way.
Marshall or Mesa Boogie?
Oh. Can I do a third option?
Sure.
Yamaha.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Stereo bus.
Mono taxi.
Piano.
Suitcase.
Rhodes. Reverb.
Ooh. There's a cave in Iceland. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Spike Stent.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I got piano again, so I'll ask it again. Piano. Give me a better answer this time.
Tack pianos are like a new thing for me. Like I just prepared piano. Oh, Chili Gonzalez. Do you know those solo piano records?
No.
Okay, do yourself a favor and check that. Chili Gonzalez. He's done music for Peaches. He's done all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's an absolute genius.
I mixed the Peaches record.
But
recently.
he's got 2 records called Solo Piano, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There's a song called Overnight on there that is one of the most spectacular pieces of music. It moved me beyond belief.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's really wild.
What's the cheapest piece of gear you've used on a session yet? That was not Home Alone, but something out to the public.
The microphones that come with computers, the old PCs. I've had this one microphone that I've used it. You know who you should have on here is Money Mark. That guy, I have never seen anyone utilize absolutely everything available in the world to a musical direction. That guy's out of this world. But he and I just dug up one of my old computer microphones because we were using it.
Sylvia's a lot like that.
Yeah.
She could turn anything into music. How'd I do, her?
You did really well. He just did slightly better.
I think he's carrying, so let's give it to him.
So 2 questions before we get out of
Sure.
here, and thanks for spending time with me. One
course,
is
man.
you have to, you're working on the new Weezer record?
Yes, I'm making something unexpected with absolutely incredibly. It's one of my favorite records I've ever worked on. There's There's a lot more freedom than I think someone like me should be allowed. And
That's dangerous.
Yeah. So I credit their courage, but it's out of this world. It's really something wildly unexpected. So
cool.
It's been a lot of fun.
And
That's
show that ring to that camera.
Oh yeah. So
Oh gosh.
yeah. So I work out of Sonic Ranch in El Paso, which is like one of my favorite, like just out there places to go. It's 5 recording studios on 3,000 acres of pecan trees,
Wow.
and he's got 2 Neves, 2 SSLs, and an API on this pecan orchard. And outside of town, there's a little, I say a little, probably the biggest steakhouse in America, and so they have this huge gift shop to accommodate all these tourists. And in the gift shop, there's a lot of things that you would expect. And then there's this really weird jewelry case, which has a lot of like turquoise and things like that. And then this thing was just sitting there, like
Calling you.
just calling, like from a distance. And it just kind of spoke to me. And then so I bought it, and I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I put it on and wrote one of the best songs in my entire life. And I was like, okay, if that's our relationship, I'm fine with it. So it's been a good luck charm. I tend to take it to places where I think it'll get charged up with more, and you guys are certainly, you provide a really incredible source of, resources and information, but also energy and encouragement. So I figured that would be a good place to bring it.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Thank
To
you,
our
Dave.
audience, find jewelry at steakhouses in out-of-way places in southern states. So
That's how you become successful.
That's how you become successful,
for
inspired.
sure.
Dave, thank you, and DP,
Absolutely, I
take us home.
appreciate it.
I was just sitting here thinking for a moment. It's inspiring to see somebody that comfortable on the edge of our profession. And we need cats out on the edge, because without guys like Dave on the edge, we'll never know what the middle is. So that helps us find the middle too. Not sure if that made sense, but I think it did. We'll see you next week.